Yes, Android 17 is the tip of the iceberg today, as Google has also bundled in a little pixel drop for us to get our teeth into. It is a small one, but let's get into it in this video. But of course, you're here, the home of Android content here on YouTube. So how about hitting that subscribe button, kick off your slippers and relax, because we have you covered. Cheers. So right up top, let's just clarify, the pixel drop for June 2026 is technically separate from the Android 17 release, although some of the features rely on the Android 17 release. I don't know why Google does it this way, but definitely go check out our deep dive to learn exactly what is new. There isn't tons, but I do think that is a really nice video for you to get into and to learn about what might be new on your eligible Pixel phone. But in the Pixel drop, the biggest new addition is that most people, or at least most people will be interested in, is probably going to be screen reactions. So, you know, those annoying kind of people on TikTok that do selfie video camera reactions to stuff? Well, this just emulates that without anything else needed. You don't need a green screen. Just fire up the screen recording feature. There's a new option here that you can choose. You can set the background, the color of the background, or record an application in the background as well. I will say it's a very good implementation of it. I have no idea what I will use it for specifically, but if you're one of those people that do the TikTok, then it might be nice for you. So yeah, screen reactions is probably the biggest new addition here in the Pixel drop. So let's get that right out of the way at the top. Google also said that this next feature was in Android 17, but I do think this is more tied to the drop, or there's zero evidence of this at any stage up until today. But there is a new dedicated handheld gaming mode on foldable phones that I actually really do love the look of them. I don't know why Google didn't make us more aware of this at an earlier stage. Now there is a better sectional or on-screen controller system that emulates a proper gamepad. I think the Xperia line, that old Xperia line where you had that slide-out keyboard. So this is a 50-50 layout that is something that we probably should have had since day one on foldables. It might have made it more interesting to gamers out there, but I haven't tested this out for myself just yet, so I don't know what it's going to be like. I'm actually excited to get my Pixel 10 Pro Fold updated and try this for myself. But let me know if you have, and if you're having fun with it down in the comments. I'd love to see more unique tweaks like this period to take advantage of those foldable displays. But yeah, you have a new game controller, on-screen game controller, that looks very, very interesting. Some of the other notables, well, Google really wants to highlight bubbles for productivity with the Pixel drop, especially on the Pixel Fold lineup again. This is just a mini pop-ups like chat heads that we've seen for over a decade, or at least saw over a decade ago. Nothing really much to speak of, but I do think maybe the reason why they're highlighting this is because it gets around some split screen limitations, as on Pixel phones in particular, you can actually only run, or you could only run two screens side by side, or two apps side by side. So this kind of gets around that, because potentially you can have 3, 4, 5, and maybe that aspect of it is really, really cool. The Magic Queue feature with this Pixel drop is coming to more messaging applications on Pixel 10 and newer, not the Pixel 10a if I recall correctly. What is weird is that this won't work with Telegram, Snapchat and Instagram messaging, so maybe not as useful to everyone in every single application that you use, but hopefully this does mean apps like WhatsApp and other messaging applications of that ilk will work better with Magic Queue, pulling those contextual answers and replies to people when they ask you questions, all that kind of thing, because I do think this will be really useful, and a lot of Pixel 10 owners will like this new change with the Pixel drop. A few more notable expansions here. Edit Photos is finally leaving the US for Germany, France, Spain, Italy, and here in the UK. I'm excited to try this out. I think this is one of those features that I saw and I was like, this might be pretty interesting to me. It lets you use text or voice prompts to edit your images. I don't actually know if it's still limited to English, but the expansion to those extra nations does kind of suggest otherwise. So yeah, you might be able to use this in German, Spanish, Italian, and French, but don't quote me on that. I will leave links down in the description to explain those features and what languages they work in, so check that out if you are confused. AirDrop functionality and compatibility is now expanded to the Pixel 9a and the 8a. I actually didn't know it wasn't available for those, so it does mean you will be able to send and receive files between Mac and iPhone and basically all summer long now. Just remember to use the everyone for 10 minutes sharing option, but I do think this is another nice touch, especially if you have those cheaper devices and you need to send stuff to your friends, family, and your in-home devices. Like I say, I use a Mac and I have to send things from my Pixel 10 constantly, so I really do like this feature. The last couple of extras here in this Pixel drop, manual call screen is coming to India, and voice translate is now on Pixel 10a for calls. So yeah, you should have a better experience there as well. On Pixel Watch, because there is some options here for Pixel Watch, and I'll get into more of that in a moment, emergency sharing is just moving into the car crash, fall, and loss of pulse detection, likely just to tidy up that safety setting. Again, nothing major over here. And because we're getting into watch things, this is what I alluded to, let me set some time aside here for Wear OS, because I don't think there's quite enough to really dive into a separate video on this, and it isn't rolling out in the same way. So if you do have an eligible Pixel Watch, which I do think should mean the Pixel Watch 2 and newer, this is rolling out right now. And a lot of the key changes are related to system performance with Wear OS 7. Google is actually saying that we could get up to 10% battery life gains with this version update. But again, if you have an older watch, I'm hopeful that translates to you, but the battery might have degraded to the point where that makes a difference. Finally, live updates are now supported on Wear OS. They let you track ongoing events like sports scores, workout progress, or deliveries. You'll see a persistent icon at the bottom of your watch face and a card on top of the notifications feed to track this. Tapping provides that real-time status and other details that do appear on your phone. I do like this, especially you might have an LTE version and you do want to track things on the go. Another nice touch. System media controls now feature an integrated output switcher. So this lets you control what's playing on your headphones, your home speakers and more, and switch audio from one device to another. Again, another tying feature between watch and your phone, which is always nice to see Google doing that. Overall, Google says that Wear OS 7 is built better to work with your connected devices, and this includes those audio glasses which are coming later this year. So when you take a photo and the capture appears, or it will appear on your wrist for quick review if you do want to check that out. Again, we don't have any devices to test this on, but it could be a nice feature when we get more glasses out there in the wild, and we are expecting Samsung to reveal some in the not too distant future. Google is also highlighting some of the upcoming Gemini intelligence features that select Wear OS 7 devices will get later this year. There wasn't mention for the exact models for what it's worth, but I kind of would guess Pixel Watch 3, and above, but do not quote me on that. I don't know for certain. There's bound to be some hardware limitations somewhere. So yeah, I'm thinking Pixel Watch 3 and above. As previously announced, also Create My Widget lets you make custom dashboards for your wrist. Wear OS 7 also renames tiles to widgets, and the creation experience is happening right there on your device. I feel like this might not be available from the very get-go, actually, as Create a Widget on Android phones still isn't actually available and wasn't mentioned in the Pixel Drop for phones, so it could be on a bit of a delay. So for me, I think it could just be that this is a teaser for later this summer, as was noted in the Android show a few weeks ago for lots of the Gemini intelligence features. So I think that kind of does probably come in another Pixel Drop in or around the Pixel 11 series launches, provided that Google does stick to their August-ish launch timeline for the hardware, and then September for QPR2. Multi-step app automation will let Gemini navigate tasks as well directly from your watch. The Gemini application is also on Wear OS 7 at least getting access to personal intelligence. It will get a neural expressive redesign. Again, I don't know if this is available right away, but I do think Gemini getting this new overlay, like you see on phones, it means it's going to be a little bit better and more usable, as it can appear on your watch face, complete with transcription, instead of having to kind of ditch everything that you're doing and opening a new screen. I really like that touch. And for some strange reason, right at the very end of this Pixel Drop, Google's also highlighting Lyria 3 for music creation and Gemini Omni video creation. They're not new. I do wonder if they're doing this because the actual Pixel Drop itself is so light compared to recent drops, and maybe people aren't using these tools as much as they hoped for initially. It could also just be that they're doing this as a proper mention, given that not many normies were watching Google I/O quite as intently as probably we were, or people tapped into tech. But yeah, that's the June 2026 Pixel Drop, a light load, but it is on top of Android 17. Itself isn't the biggest. I do think it's more of a refinement, but I do think there's a lot to like here. But that's it. That's the first phase of Android 17 out of the way. More to come in the next few months with QPR1 and then QPR2 later down the line, with that beta itself ongoing as we speak. But I think that will get a lot more exciting in the next few months as we do approach those releases. Let me know what you think, though, down in the comment sections below. Is this a nice extra touch on top of Android 17? And if you do want to see all of those features, definitely go check out our deep dive into Android 17 itself. I'd love for you to check that one out. I'll leave links down in the description below, as always. But cheers for watching, and I will speak to you later.